What is going on, everybody? Jesse here, 3Prong Gaming, and in today's episode we are going to do a little bit of work on the continued work on the NPC HUD. We're going to hook up some colors to the progress bar, and we're going to set up some of the functions to be able to regain and deplete the stamina. The depletion will be operational by the end of this episode. We won't do the regain and the sleeping feature until probably the next episode. So let's get this thing going. Alright, so yeah, in the last episode, if you missed it, we went ahead and we started setting up the progress bar for the stamina of the AI. Let me see if I can't pull up that HUD really quick. NPC HUD. Yeah, so we set this up in here. So right now we're going to set this up and make this functional. First, in the last episode, as we were doing some stuff in here, there was a bug that occurred. And I originally said that it was, I think the NPC is just not becoming revisible. I knew that wasn't the case. It just wasn't a bug I wanted to track down on the last episode. But I did track it down off camera, and I will show it to you. You may or may not have this in your game, but if you do, then let's go ahead and correct this really quick. In the NPC behavior tree, there was a few things I noticed in here, whether it contributed to the bug or not, I don't know, but it needed to be fixed anyways. First, in these decorators here, both is not at office and is at office. The housing reference wasn't set. So I just had to click on it, come up here to housing reference, and make sure to select house reference. Same thing with this one. And then down here, same thing with this move to location. The house reference was not set. So I set that there, and I don't remember if it was set up here on this one. Oh, see, it's not right there. I can show you right now. House reference. It's not set properly. So let's go house reference. Location type, none selected. We don't need that one set right there. That's what that needs to be. So yeah, I don't think I went in and changed any of those. So just always just double check your see right there too, did the same thing. House reference. Just always try to keep track of your tasks to make sure that they're pointing at the right keys. All right. And the main problem here is if we open up the move to location, and like I said, you may not have this in here. I don't know why this wasn't hooked up or why it was broke, but down here in our move to office function, I came down here and this was not hooked up. All right, so it was here. It was just like that. So yeah, I just had to rehook that back up, and now everything works like it should, at least in the limited testing I did for it. So yeah, that was it for that. So let's go ahead and close out the behavior tree. We're not going to need it again today. NPC HUD. We're also going to need, actually, really, I think the only other blueprint we're going to need at this point is the NPC AI controller. So let's go ahead and open that up as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up some colors in our HUD. So let's go in here, select your progress bar, and we've got the percent set up to get stamina progress. See, we got that one right here. Let's go ahead and close out these other ones. We don't need them. Actually, we're not going to need this either. But this one just gets, this is what we did the last episode. We just set this up right here to get the stamina. And so let's go ahead and close that out. Go back into your designer here. Now let's go ahead and the fill color and opacity under appearance. Let's click bind, create binding. And of course, it always gives us a horrible name. So let's press F2. Let's actually call this one set stamina color underscore progress. All right, like I said, progress, it's for a progress bar, and we're setting the stamina color. So let's go ahead and disconnect this, and we're actually going to need 2 more of those return nodes. So let's just go ahead and drop that in for now. All right, so now we need to know the way we want to set these is we want to do it if the depending on the percentage of your stamina, if it gets to a certain level, like if it starts to get down close to a bad level, we want to turn it yellow. If it gets into a critical state, we want it to turn red. And if it's just normal, go ahead and turn off auto saving. I don't know why. I usually shut that off. But anyways, if everything's normal, we want it to be green. So let's go ahead and right click on one of these return nodes on the blue pin. And let's call promote to local variable. Let's call this one color underscore local. All right, and let's set its default value here to green, just pure green or whatever color you want. I'm going to use green, and turn the alpha all the way up and press OK. Cool. Now that's the default value. Now the great thing about this being a local variable is even though this is pretty much going to run every single tick to keep to keep this updated, by it being a local, every time it's ticked, this variable will go to its default setting. So it'll always be, every time this ticks, the default will always be green, and then it'll pick. So you'll see why that's important here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and pull off the reference here and do stamina. Get the stamina, pull that out here. So you can set these levels to whatever you want. What I did was, let's go ahead and pull off of here. So if your stamina is greater than or equal to, let's say 75, which would be 75%. Let's go ahead and drop in a branch here. All right. If it is, then that means we're pretty healthy. So all we want to do now is just take this return node here. And let's drop that up there. Punch it into true. If it's true, that's what we want. Now that's why I said every tick it's going to reset to the default green, is because if this becomes true, we don't have to set the color on it. It'll just automatically be green. All right. But if it's not, let's go ahead and drop it in another branch right here, put it into false. So if it's not, well, if it's not what? We need to pull off the stamina again. We actually need to do a couple here. So if it is less than 75, and even though we don't really need this, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't need this, because if it's not greater than or equal to 75, well, then obviously it's going to be less than 75. But the reason why we're doing this here is because we're actually going to run this as an AND. So let's do AND, because we're running 3 colors right here that we're going to do. So stamina again, pull this off. And if it is greater than or equal to, I did 50. What did I do? 50. Let's do, yeah, we'll keep it at 50. Maybe 40%. Nah, 50% is fine. If you get down below 50%, then we want to change it to red. So that's why we did this here. So if it's less than, so that way it just kind of gives us an in-between. If it's between 74 or, under 75, but above 50, then what we need to do, go ahead and, so if this is true, if it's in between these two variables or these two floats right there, what we need to do is now we need to take our local variable. Let's go ahead and drop this in as a set. We're going to need this twice. Okay. Hook this up to the true. Hook this up right there, and same thing right there. And let's just go ahead and grab the set, plug that into there, and there. So if this is true, meaning it's in between 50 and 75, what we want to do is we want to run yellow. So let's go ahead and turn red up, green up, and we get our yellow. Okay. And then right here, select this one. And if it's that, we need to go red, click OK. Perfect. So now that's what it's going to end up being. So we'll test that in just a little bit as soon as we get our actual stamina starting to deplete. So that is it for that one. We could probably just go ahead and close out this HUD right now. You can set these variables whatever you want to make your critical aspect, then go ahead and do that. Okay, let's jump into the NPC AI controller. We can close out that function right there, I believe. So what do we need to do here? Let's open this up, open up my cheat sheet here. There's a few things we need to do here. We've got the game state reference. So what we need to do is, if you remember correctly, back into the game state. Let's open that up real quick so I can show you guys, remind you guys what's going on here. Game state. Let's open this up. We created this function here, get current time unit. We got this. All this does is return time unit, because what we did with this variable, and Doesn't look like I did that on this one. So what I did in my cheat sheet, and I didn't do it on this one, was a time unit. I marked it as private. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. That way you cannot manipulate this time unit from any other blueprint. It is unique to this one, and seeing as time is a very important aspect, it's probably best to keep this private. We don't want this somehow being altered anywhere else. And that is why we created this function, get time unit. So now we can just use this. This is called a getter function. We can use this getter to get the time unit, even though that's very simplistic. It just keeps things very OPP. OPP? Object? OOP. Yeah, OPP. You down with OPP? All right, so yeah, that's old school. Some of you probably don't even know that. If you do, then congrats on you. So we need to get that time unit. So let's just go ahead and pull off of this and do get get time. What the heck did we just call that? Get current time unit. Wow. Okay. Get current time unit. All right. So this is in the begin play right here, because we need to grab it right off the bat. Okay. So now we need to take this. Now we need to take this time unit. Let's just promote this to a variable, and we'll call this time unit. That's fine. It's got its own time unit. And so we got that set right there. Let's go ahead and, oh man, what else do we need to do? Also in the game state, let's compile that real quick, compile it. Also in the game state, we've got this event dispatcher, event update game speed. Now we created this as an event dispatcher because there's going to be multiple things that are going to need to know when the game time changes, when the game speed changes. So we created this as a event dispatcher. So whenever it gets updated from the HUD, it runs this. Every time it gets updated from the HUD, it comes out here and then it calls this event dispatcher update game speed. Okay. So what we need to do though, our AI controller is actually going to need that. So we need to bind it. Best place to bind is in a begin play, or at least the most common and useful is to do it in a begin play. So let's go ahead and grab our game state again. You can just run wires off of there if that's what you want to do. But I'm just going to drop in a variable here. And then just type in bind. We got under default, bind event to update game speed. All right, cool. Plug that in. So now on this update game speed, when it calls it, it sends out a float time unit. It's called time unit. Doesn't matter what you call it on the other end, but it's a float. So we've got to have that in our bindable event. So jump back into the AI controller. So let's go ahead and right click. Let's do custom event. We'll call this one update time. Go ahead and add a new input. We'll call this new time and make it of type float. And let's compile it so it's there. Yeah, we're going to get that warning right there. That's okay. Drag off this, type create event. And then we've got our new update time right there. So go ahead and select that. That's what we want to bind it to. Compile it. That error goes away. Let's save it just to be safe. All right, so now what we need to do is, since this is begin play, there's most likely down the road, there's going to be stuff that we're going to want to add to this. So just to keep things a little bit cleaner and organized, go ahead and drop in. I did an S and a click on the screen to get your sequence node here. Let's just drop in a sequence node. So that way, if we need to run something else, we can just pull off the sequence and just kind of keep it better organized here. Okay. Update time, we got that right there. So when update time is called, all we need to do is we need to take our time unit, drop it in here, and we just need to, set it to this new time. So that's pretty much all this function is going to do. All right, is just do that. However, because of this sequence here, let's go ahead and we're going to drop in another sequence right here. Plug in the update time there, and from your sequence up here in the begin play, drop it down here. Because what we need to do is on begin play, we set our time unit. We come down here and we're going to have to run our functions we're going to set some timers in here. You'll see in just a minute. We're going to set some timers in here that we need to get started as soon as an NPC is dropped into the world. Okay, and the only way to do that is on begin play. So we'll do that. This will only be called the once on begin play. And then every time update time is called, whenever we change game speed, it's going to hit this event, update our time unit, hit this sequence, and it's going to run everything in this sequence. So that's why this is set up like that. Hopefully you guys kind of understand that concept right there. And normally I try to put you guys, do these videos in a way that is logical. I try not to go too far ahead and show you guys, stuff that I know we're going to need. I just try to add stuff as we do it, but I'm going to break that rule today. So we're actually going to do a couple things, because we're only going to set up the depletion of stamina at this point in today's video. But we're going to create the regain stamina function just because it's really simple. And we'll also, like I said, we'll do the depletion here. And the reason why we're running this as a sequence, because we're going to have to do all our stats. We're going to have to do our hunger and entertainment, whatever stats you want your NPC to do. We'll need to run off of this sequence. You just add pins to whatever you need. Now, there are probably 100 different ways that you can do your stats and its depletion and all this. It gets a little bit complicated when you're doing what we're doing with the changing of the game speeds and the time and all that stuff. It makes a little bit less obvious and of what you can do. Your options are a little bit fewer. What I'm doing here is a pretty basic setup. It works. It may not be the best way to go about doing it, especially you'll see when we get into, I don't want to talk too far in advance, but when we do the actual behavior tree check and tasks to get this, to check these variables, there's going to be better ways to do it. You may want to put weight on your stats, like maybe hunger is more important than sleep, and sleep's more important than your entertainment. And depending on those weights is how you would check to see what your NPC is going to do next. And ultimately that's really the way you want to go. And I would like to set this up in that manner. But I haven't set that up even in my main project. There's a good video. It's a Twitch stream. Actually, it's a whole series. I think they're up to like episode 10 or 11 now from Unreal. It's got Ian Shadden and Alexander Pascal on there. And they even pull in some Miesco, the lead AI guy for Unreal, to do some work on it. But in the first couple episodes, they talk about doing weighted stats for their character. So you might want to go check that out. I'm not going to leave you a link or anything. It's all pretty recent videos on the Unreal YouTube page. So go ahead and go check those out if you want to learn a little bit extra on top of what you're learning here. Okay, we're not going to worry about this condition yet. We'll set that in a minute. All right, we're going to do some set timers. So go ahead and do set timer by, let's do function name. All right, we're going to need 2 of them. Control W. Now we don't have any functions yet, so let's go ahead and create those functions now. All right. Actually, before we do that, let's just right click on the return value right here. No, we won't. We'll do that in a second, because we got to create the function so we know what name we're going to do this, even though I know what the names are going to be. Let's go ahead. We're going to need 2 variables, or 2 functions. I'm sorry. Go ahead and click new function there. Let's call this one regain stamina. Do another one here. Call this one deplete. Deplete. Did I spell that one right? Oh no, that looks wrong. Deplete stamina. All right, go with that. Let's go into the deplete stamina since we're already here right now. What we need to do is we need to get our pawn reference. Now remember, this is the pawn reference that the controller is. Let's go here to the event graph. Right here we've got on possess. When the AI controller possesses the pawn, we set that to our pawn reference variable right there. So that's what that is. Okay, so go into deplete pawn. We need to grab our pawn reference. Get it? So this is unique to every AI controller and every pawn. All right, so off of this, let's go ahead and get their stamina. Get stamina. And we need to take this stamina. We need to subtract it, float. Now what we need to subtract it from is, let's go ahead and create two new variables right here. We'll call this one stamina hourly regeneration. All right. Make it of type float. Create another one. Stamina hourly deduction. Again, type float. Let's go ahead and what these are going to do, and the reason why I named these like these is hourly, is because of the time feature, we need to decide rather than how much to remove each tick, how much do you want the stamina in this case to either regenerate or deduct in an hour. Okay, it's just going to make it a lot easier. If you think in terms of hours instead of minutes, it's going to make things a whole lot easier, especially when you think that if you try to get a little bit closer to reality, most people go, 16 to 20 hours without going to bed every day. So you can do something like that to where you only you get this to deduct so much, based on math, you get this to deduct so much in an hour to kind of match those guidelines. You could do some random generation to where if, to where it's going to check every, 16 hours or every 20 hours. It's somewhere in between there. It's going to change this according to doing that. We're not going to do that right now. We're just going to set this up as some basic defaults, but just use your imagination and you can get it, some pretty interesting results. So on this, what I did for this one, this is for regeneration. Right now, this isn't going to make too big of a deal. I just want to remember to do it right now. Is I've got it defaulted to 7.5. I've got to remember how my math worked out on this. 7.5. Pretty much every hour, you multiply that by 24, and that's how much, you can figure out how fast you're going to regain. So like if you sleep 8 hours in a day, right? I think that's what I did for that. So if you multiply that by 8, that'll give you full health or somewhere close in there. I don't remember how I worked it out. I'm not going to do the math right now. And then hourly deduction. Now, actually, what I did with this hourly deduction, we're going to default this a little bit higher than normal, just for demonstration purposes today. But my normal default for this, I did as a 3.5. Again, I don't remember exactly where. I'm not going to work out the math in my head right now. I'm just going to confuse you guys and waste time. But just run some basic math. It's just some simple math. All right. But we're going to actually run this higher just for testing purposes. But for now, let's just go ahead and drag this in. Hourly deduction because we're in deplete stamina. So now we take this and divide it by 60. All right, because of of our time unit, we want to divide this by. This is going to be running pretty much every tick, right? So we take this hourly deduction, divide it by 60, and that will give us the results that we need right there. All right. So then we subtract it from our stamina. So that way it'll take it away. But we want to make sure to clamp this. Okay. So we want our minimum value. We don't want to go below 0 stamina. And we don't want, even though max isn't a big deal here since we're depleting, just set it anyways. We want to keep it at a max of 100. Okay. So now we need to take our pawn reference again. Let's get it. And then we will set stamina. Pull that up there, plug in the green wire, set that up. And I'm sorry if I confused you guys on that. Like I said, it is really some basic math, and I probably should have got that straight in my head before I started the episode, but I didn't. So I apologize for that, but it is really just some basic math. You just figure out, how much per hour you want to deduct. Now remember, these numbers that we're deducting, these are physical numbers, so every hour we're going to deduct 3.5. That's 3.5 out of 100. So, you could just figure that out on a 24-hour basis. How much do you want, or even a 16-hour basis for your sleep? How much do you want your sleep to go down to? So you can run some randomization, like I said, randomizations on that so that, not all your NPCs are going to sleep after, 16 hours of being awake. So regain stamina. Let's go ahead and jump into that one. This one is actually going to be very similar. And you know what? Why don't we just go like this to save a minute? Let's go ahead and just Control C out of the deplete stamina. Do Control V. We'll put that in here. Let's just go ahead and plug this in. Now, really, the only thing that we're going to need to do on this one is we need to change this to an addition. Go plus float. Hook that in. Now hook that into the value right there. And then the hourly deduction needs to go into hourly regeneration. Just like so. And that's it. Let's go ahead and add a return node. Drop that in right there because it's good practice. Compile it, save it, and yeah, that's pretty much it, right? So it's going to deduct. Oh, now we need to go out here into our event graph. Okay, so what we need to do now is this first one. Like I said, I know that this top one is going to be true to what we're going to run here off the condition. This is going to be, and the reason why I'm not doing it yet is because we got to create handles. So regain stamina, right? Is that the name? Yeah, regain stamina. You got to do it the name of your function. So zoom in here, regain stamina. And then this one will be deplete stamina. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Okay, so now let's go ahead and right click on this one, promote it to a variable. We will call this regain stamina handle. I like to put handle after any of my timer handles because then you can just look at it and say, oh, that's a handle, right? Because these blue ones are the same color as like your structs and all that. So pull off this one, promote that to a variable, and deplete stamina handle. Perfect. All right, so now what we're going to do is for the condition, and like I said, I try not to get too far ahead of you guys because really this isn't going to make a difference. You're not going to know what this does until we actually set it up in the behavior tree, but it'll make a little bit more sense in the next one. Just trust me on this. Take your deplete stamina handle right here. Let's get it. What we need to check is timer paused by handle? Select that one's going to give us an output of a Boolean. So is this function paused? Because that's what we're going to end up doing is when we go to regain, once we go to sleep, we're going to need to run this regain stamina. The way we're going to do that is we're just going to pause this timer. All right. So once this timer gets paused, it's going to come up here and it's going to run this one until it's unpaused. Once our stamina gets to a certain level, it's going to unpause and then it'll resume this set timer right here. Okay, so now we need a time for this. So fortunately for us, we've got time. So go ahead and pull out your time unit right here. All right, let's get it. Now we need to take this time unit though, the way we have it coming through from our game state is we need to take it and we need to divide it by 60. Okay, let's go ahead and take that and then just plug it into both the time units right there. And then that's it. That's all we've got to do for today, right? That's about perfect timing. So compile and save it. Let's go ahead and go test this. Actually, let's grab our NPC really quick. Find a stamina variable right there. And I set it default in the last episode to 75. Let's just set it to 85 for right now, just for testing purposes. Compile it and save it. And then let's go back into the AI controller really quick. And on this stamina hourly deduction, like I said, we're going to change this just to show, just for testing. Let's just move it to 10, compile it, save it. Let's go ahead and press play and move the game screen over here. So let's go ahead, drop him in there. Ooh, there she is right there. Now you can see it dropping down. Now it's green. And let's go ahead and speed that up a little bit. Ooh. All right, she's green right now. And all right, maybe I should have set that higher. You know what? Let's go set that higher. Let's go in here, go stop. Let's set this hourly deduction to, let's just, no. Yeah, hourly deduction. We want to move it down to 50. So in 1 hour, we will lose 50 stamina. That's what that'll come down to, okay? So there's your math for you. So every hour that of game speed, it'll drop 50, okay? So compile it and save it. That's a little bit easier to explain right there. So let's drop in our NPC, jump up the game speed, grab her. There she is. Stamina. And why isn't it going down? Let's go like this. It's not going down right now. I don't understand why it's not going down. So let's just go into here real quick. Let's go into our AI controller, deplete stamina. Let's watch this value is it going to show. Probably not in scope. Oh, we got to change debug to that. Not in scope. Figured it wasn't in scope. So let's go into our NPC player. Stamina. Personal settings. No. Where is that function we created? No, we didn't create that function in there. Huh. Why isn't it? Let's jump this back up here. It's not going down. I don't understand why it's not going down. Why isn't it depleting? So let's go back into the AI controller. For some reason, it's not starting that timer, I would assume. Oh, that's why. Set these to looping. We want these to loop. We don't want it to. That's why it only ticked once. All right. I think that should fix it right there. That was easy debug. Good. I was a little bit worried about that. So now, let's drop in another one. Raise up the game speed. There we go. Now the timer's looping and it's dropping down. So perfect. Now let's see. Oh, there it goes. It switched to yellow. Give it just a minute. We'll see it drop right on down to red once it hits 50%. And you could time this out. Like I said, if you put this up to 100 as a starting stamina, note whatever time it is when you drop the NPC in the world, set their health depletion to 50 an hour. So then that should mean that by the time it turns red, regardless of your game speed, an hour should have passed from the time you spawned your NPC into the world. All right. So, yeah, there we go. Perfect. We'll set up the functionality to make that actually matter and go to sleep. But just to confirm that this is going to work, that we fixed the bug that was in the last one, there we go. I need to fix that. I got rid of, off of the spawning, I got rid of the collision box visuals right there. I need to do that for the construction proxy as well, because we don't need to see that stuff anymore. So click on that. Progress bar is going up. Just making sure everything's all like it should be. It should be. I tested it right before I started the episode. There we go. Gonna head back to work. Perfect. Everything is working perfectly. Let's go like this. Select it quick. There we go. Stamina's down to 0. So, yep. Next episode, we'll work on the logic to be able to regain our stamina to actually go to sleep. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. If you got any questions about this, I know there's probably a couple things that I may have made a little confusing. Hopefully I answered a little bit better on the hourly depletion and regeneration of how to calculate that, as far as, you know, what you need to do to make your AI sleep or lose stamina so much during an entire day. Or, you know, if you want them to sleep every 8 hours, then you need to figure out how much, and it'll make a little bit more sense too when we decide, once we create the AI task, set up the behavior in the AI behavior tree of how those numbers will work, because the way I have it set up is as at a bare minimum, when the health gets down to 40, he's going to go to sleep. That's kind of the critical state I created. But depending on that is how you're going to decide how much stamina you want to deduct every hour to get them to sleep how many of your hours after being awake. Okay. So yeah, like I said, leave me a like, helps me out a ton. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until next time, peace.